Good morning to all my students. Today I will be discussing with all of you a very important topic, which is elucidating the concept of state. Since we all know that state is a very important concept, to put it in other words, state is a sui generis concept. It is a very peculiar term, or it is a very unique term in political science. So it provides us a range of benefits such as healthcare, education, roads, telephone, parks, and movies. So all these important basic necessities are given to all of us by the institution which is called a state. So state is omnipresent in our lives. So therefore, there is a very important cube or jargon which is you may not be interested in state, but state is certainly interested in you. What does it mean? That means, the state, we are all our lives, our daily activities, all, our all lives are, you know, directed, influenced, guided, and controlled by the institution which is called the state, the highest political institution, the powerful institution which is called the state. So our lives are directed, guided, or controlled by the state on daily basis. No matter whatever activities we do, or we act or perform. So then we have to also understand from the etymological point of view that state word has been derived from the Latin word status, which means condition or circumstances, and Latin status derives from stare, to stand, remain, or be permanent. So this is the literal meaning of the word state. But that is not enough for my student. We have to have a very holistic, very comprehensive, and we have to elaborate the concept of the state. I need to unravel, the concept of state in a very scholarly manner, so that my students will have a depth of knowledge, a very good understanding about the concept of state. So if you see, when I am saying the state is a so important, so prerequisite institution, so it has been proved by the scholarly writings. For example, there is a R.G. Gettle. He says, the political science, when he is defining political science, he says political science as the science of the state. So state has become so much peculiar, so much unique concept in political domain, or in political science, or in international politics or global politics, that we can hardly stay away, or we can hardly escape from this concept, because it is a necessary evil. It is a very important institution, and it affects all of our lives, on all of us, or our lives, on daily basis. And therefore the state, in political science, it is the science of the state. Political science as the science of the state has been, explained by, or defined by R.G. Kettle. Then there is also a political science begins and ends with the state. This is the notion, or the definition, or given by the J.W. Garner. So he says that political science begins and ends with the state. So because of the significance, because of the relevance, the word state, or the state, it has a lot of relevance. It has a lot of commendable role. It plays a very crucial role in human society. Therefore, we can also say that state is a human institution, because it has to deal ultimately with the people. It has to, it actually possesses the political authority. It controls the population. It maintains the rule of law. It directs them, and it also refrains the people from doing something wrong. So therefore, we can say state is a political, legal, and constitutional concept. State is a legal, political, and constitutional concept. And according to, and there is a very famous definition which is accepted most of the scholars, and that is given by Max Weber, who is a German sociologist. He says a state is a human community that successfully claims the monopoly of legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. So, from this definition, a lot of elements are already clear that a state is actually a human community that successfully claims the monopoly of legitimate use of physical force. So this legitimate use of physical force is the domain, it's the power in the hands of the state. So state has this power, state has this political authority, state has this monopoly, legitimate use of physical force over the people within a given territory, which the territory which actually comes within the jurisdiction of the state. So hopefully most of the elements are clear when we see the definition of the state given by Max Weber. So Max Weberian definition is somehow very complete, because it gives us a very comprehensive understanding about the state. That a state is a human community that successfully claims the monopoly of legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. For example, a state has all the institutions which are for the purpose to maintain law and order, and also, for example, a state has police, a state has army, a state has many other departments. A state has directions, a state has rules. For different departments. So therefore, the state has that authority. If somebody abides the law, state rewards that person, and if somebody becomes the he becomes a problematic person, then state has state goes with the theory of punishment. So therefore, there is a theory of reward and punishment which works together. Sometimes and as a citizen we have to be law abiding citizen, and if somebody is not following the directives or the directions of the state, then definitely, or he commits something wrong, then definitely he will be refrained from the by the state. Therefore, we can say state has the political authority and state has the power. State has the influence over the population, over the people, all the times. State possesses political authority. Most of the times in our society, there can be different organization which may possess some sort of authority, but when it comes to the state always possesses the political authority. So political authority is always concentrated in the hand of the state, and when that authority is generally accepted, getting accepted by the people, that becomes the legitimate authority, because the legitimacy comes from the people. And state is a permanent institution. It is not like a temporary institution, and it is a permanent institution. It always persists. Whereas when we see the government, it may change. So government is not a permanent institution. So for example, in the context of the United States of America, the people they use the term, for example, administration, and for the purpose of the government. And for example, they say Reagan administration, Obama administration. So they use this type of words. For example, about they use administration word for the purpose of the government. So then. The modern state is characterized by impersonal standing. For example, previously you have seen in theory, for example, the in political in theory of the Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli theory. When he wrote a book, The Prince, why the state actually was controlled by the prince, by the ruler. So that was considered as the state of prince, or similarly in the Thomas Hobbesian concept, where the state was declared as the state of Leviathan. But the modern nation state is a different concept altogether. Modern state is characterized by impersonal standing, so it is not controlled by the people, though by the people who are in power. It is not actually, even it was present before them, and it will be always after them. So it is a permanent institution. It will always persist, so it will not change. So we can say it is not the prince state, or it is not the Leviathan state. It is a impersonal. It has the impersonal standing. Or for example, I can also make it more easier. For example, those people who may be in power, we can't attach the state to them. A state is prior to them. A state was before them, and also a state will remain forever. And governments come and change. That's different thing. But state is a permanent institution. And then the modern concept of the state came actually through the Peace of Westphalia 1648, which actually make it clear. For example, the world consists of sovereign states that recognize no superior authority. This was the first principle. This was the one of the principle. The second, lawmaking, law settlement of disputes, law enforcement, or largely in the hands of the state. So that means the lawmaking and the and the settlement of disputes, everything is concentrated in the hands of the state. And therefore, and also in the national and in international politics, what we believe, the nation states, or they are the sovereign states, and they don't recognize any superior authority practically. And the differences among the states are often settled by force. Most of the times what we see, if there are some differences between the two states, from the democratic peace theory, we have alternative that we can initiate dialogue or something like that. But what happens actually, most of the states, they use force. So in order to settle their often they use force in order to settle their differences. Then also, collective priority of all states should be to minimize impediments to the state freedom. So it is also one of the basic point when we talk about the Peace of Westphalia 1648, which is a very important treaty when we talk about the modern nation state, a modern state. That is actually it should be the priority of all states, that to minimize the problems or the impediments which is there to the state's freedoms. Okay. Then we have to look at what are the elements of the state. There are four elements of the state. Quickly, I am going to explain to my students. First element of the state is population. So when we talk about the state, as I said, state is a human institution. Then what does it mean? That means there is always a population, or which state would be having political authority, or ruling over them and directing them through their by their laws, and by by the constitutional mechanism. So the population is very essential when we talk about the state. So state must have the population and balanced population. But population can be heterogeneous. It does not matter that all the population should be they should be same in terms of religion, in terms of culture, in terms of others. So there can be a diversity of culture, there can be diversity of language, so there can be heterogeneity, and then there is a territory. So territory is also very important concept, which means territory means a state must have some sort of territory, land, and land includes also air, space, oceans, and everything. So which is actually controlled by the state. So territory is important. It is one of the element of the state. Fixed territory. Then the government, and government is regarded as one of the agency through which the interests and the policies of the state are promoted. Okay. Then the sovereignty is the most important one among these four elements. Sovereignty, that means the supreme power of the state, and we also believe that state as an ultimate source of political power or political authority. There can be two types of sovereignty. One is the internal sovereignty, and one is the external sovereignty. In internal sovereignty, what we mean that state has this authority to maintain law and order in internal dynamics. Internally, state is powerful. Nobody can dictate to the state, and uh, and the second thing is that when we talk about in external sovereignty, that means state is powerful also externally. No other power can intervene in the internal affairs of the state. State has its own independent foreign policy, and state always take decisions independently, and so on and so forth. So externally, we can say in external spheres the state is sovereign. Then also, if we look at the if I want to justifying the state, for example, how we are going to justifying the state. So there are different theories. For example, there is a state of nature theory, and which is and the social contract theory, which says that state is important because to come out from the paradoxical situation where that the state of nature, where the human beings, they were not quite happy because there was a war of all against all, or there was some of the people they who try to create trouble, or there may be some problems, and because there was no law and order, and so on and so forth. We can say that then the people decided to make a contract, and finally they said we have to have a state, or we have to have a sovereign, we have to have a authority, or we can say Leviathan, or where or general will. I mean, finally they decided that we have to make a contract, and we have to live our lives under the within the domain of the state. And then there is also utilitarian school of thought, which says that actually it is the state which creates the greatest happiness of the greatest number of the people, and it creates that kind of arrangement where the state is actually making the lives of the people happy by its policies, by its services. And then also the state is a neutral state, which is the liberalism point of view. State is always trying to create a common good. It always works for the interest of all the sections of the society, and it respects the equality, it respects the individual rights. Okay. So from the liberal point of view, we can say state is a neutral state, or you can say. And then the patriarchal state and the class state, which is actually said by the Marx. The patriarchal state is actually the feministic point of view, that what we see in the what we see most of the time is the we have the male dominated society, but what actually state can do, state can intervene, and in order to promote the women empowerment, state state could create a lot of balance within the in a contemporary world when it comes to the rights of women. And then also you have the class state, which was said by the Karl Marx, that if you see the state, he believes that the state is an instrument of exploitation, because he says that state is always controlled by the bourgeois or by the capitalist class, whereas the labor class or the class, working class, they are not getting their due, or they are exploited by the capitalist class, and therefore he says that it is the class state. So So this is all actually we can say. Then also there are some of the challenges to the sovereignty of the state through because of globalization. When we talk about the globalization, then we talk in terms of culture, in terms of economy. That globalization had actually created a lot of hindrances to the state's sovereignty. And then we also say that imported state or so this type that actually what we have seen the political systems which we have in developing and third world countries, it is actually the it has a colonialism link because it was actually it has come from the Europe and from the European side or from outside, from the western side, because the concept of state actually first time emerged in the Europe, and then finally it was actually uh, it was actually taken from the Europe to other parts of the world in Asia and Africa and Latin America and many other countries. So I think this was all about the the concept of state, and thank you for hearing my lecture. See you next time with my another lecture. Take care of yourself. Stay blessed.